Before we begin, understand this. There are people out there who use these tactics against you every day, and this video exists so you never fall for them again. These dark rules are not for manipulation. They're for protection. Watch till the end without skipping, because ignorance is exactly how you get controlled. 1. The rule of weakness extraction. Every human carries something broken inside them, a memory that hurts, a wound that never healed. Vecna doesn't guess where that crack is. He knows. And here's what separates him from everyone else. He doesn't react when you provoke him. He responds like a chess player who's already seen your next 12 moves, because Vecna treats human psychology like dissection, shame, regret, insecurity. He indexes them, then waits.
You're a murderer is what you are.
Our world is filled with insecure peoples. They think they're fooling the world. Vecna sees through performance like glass, because while they're acting, he's studying. He watches how you shift when certain topics surface. The micro pause before you laugh something off. The subject you never bring up. The person whose name makes your jaw tighten. Patterns betray you before words ever do. And when he's collected enough, he doesn't attack broadly. He strikes surgically. Right where the bone is thinnest. One truth you've been running from. And suddenly you're not fighting him anymore. You're fighting yourself. That's the extraction. Emotions make you predictable. Logic makes you dangerous.
You've broken.
Learn to step outside your feelings, to observe more and react less. Control doesn't come from force. It comes from knowing exactly where to apply pressure and having the patience to wait for the perfect moment. 2. Break them with truth, not lies. Most villains deal in fantasy. They manipulate through deception. Vecna does the opposite. He doesn't lie to you. He shows you what you've been lying to yourself about. Because the most powerful weapon isn't fiction. It's truth you're not ready to face. He doesn't need to invent your demons. You've already bred them in silence. That relationship you pretend didn't hurt you. That ambition you gave up on. Vecna just opens the door and forces you to look at what's been rotting in the basement of your mind. Fantasy crumbles under scrutiny. But truth is undefeatable. When someone uses your own thoughts against you, there's no defense, because you can't deny what you already believe about yourself. Vecna amplifies the voice you've been trying to silence, the one that whispers you're not good enough. You'll never be forgiven for that. He takes that whisper and turns it into a scream. That's the genius of weaponized truth. You become your own executioner. When you learn this principle strategically, not to destroy, but to expose, you gain leverage that feels almost supernatural. Because people will fight lies, but they'll surrender to truths they've been avoiding. You don't need to fabricate narratives. You just need to surface the narrative they're already drowning in. And suddenly, the battlefield shifts. They're no longer fighting you. They're fighting the version of themselves they thought they buried. But remember one thing. Truth doesn't need volume. It just needs timing. And when delivered with precision, it rewrites reality without a single fabrication. 3. The rule of quiet chaos. There's a myth that power is loud, that dominance requires declaration, that control demands a raised voice and a clenched fist. Vecna destroys that myth by existing. He never announces himself, he never brags. He never needs to be seen. Because the loudest person in the room is almost always the weakest. They scream because they're afraid of being ignored. They dominate conversations because silence terrifies them. They fight for attention because without it, they don't know who they are. Vecna does the opposite. He sits back, he observes, he lets chaos unfold naturally while everyone else scrambles for control. And in that silence, he learns everything. Your insecurities spill out when you talk too much. Your strategies reveal themselves when you defend too hard. Strong men don't compete for the microphone. They already own the room, because while you're performing, they're profiling. They notice the shift in your tone when power is threatened, the subject you deflect from, the person you never make eye contact with. They read silence like others read words. And by the time they speak, if they speak, it's surgical. One sentence that redirects the entire room. Silence isn't weakness, it's data collection. When you master the art of watching, you stop chasing power. You let it come to you. Because the person who controls their tongue controls the perception, and the person who controls perception controls everything. 4. Never fight the surface. Fight the root. Vecna doesn't care about what you do. He cares about why you do it, because actions are just echoes. The real war happens in beliefs. Most people fight on the surface. They attack behaviors. They counter arguments. Vecna goes deeper. He studies your mind, the hidden belief systems that program your choices, that childhood wound that made you crave validation, that betrayal that taught you never to trust, that failure that convinced you you're not capable. Those aren't just memories, they're roots. And roots feed everything above ground. Your habits, your actions, your reactions. Vecna doesn't argue with the tree. He poisons the soil. He doesn't fight your anger. He targets the belief that makes you angry. He doesn't challenge your confidence. He questions the foundation it's built on. Because when you attack someone's actions, they defend. But when you dismantle their belief system, the framework that justifies those actions, the entire structure collapses. He slips into your mind like smoke through cracks. Not aggressive, not forceful, just familiar. And suddenly, the behavior you fought so hard to change, it changes itself. Because you can't sustain actions that contradict your core beliefs. Cut the root, and the entire tree falls. 5. Fear is a programming language. People don't move toward dreams. They move away from nightmares. Vecna knows this. Fear writes code deeper than ambition ever could. You think you're chasing success, but you're really running from the terror of being forgotten. You think you're pursuing love, but you're fleeing the nightmare of dying alone. You think you're building wealth, but you're escaping the humiliation of dependence. Fear programs behavior at the subconscious level, and most people don't even realize they're operating from it. They call it drive, motivation, purpose, but strip away the language, and underneath, it's fear wearing a suit. Vecna uses it because when you understand what someone's terrified of losing, their status, their image, their control, their past, you don't need to threaten them. You just need to remind them the threat exists. One question: what happens if you lose everything you've built? One scenario: what if people find out who you really are? And suddenly their choices aren't their own anymore. Fear is the invisible hand. It shapes elections, it drives purchases, it ends relationships. And the person who understands your fear holds the remote control to your decisions. But here's the edge. You can reverse engineer this on yourself. Audit your fears like code. What are you actually afraid of? Not the surface answer, the real one. Because once you see your own programming, you can rewrite it. And once you rewrite it, no one else can run that script on you again. Understand your fears, or be controlled by someone who already does.